Hello and welcome to another episode of the Grumpy Gits podcast, the podcast that will keep your wife's name out its fucking mouth. That's a reference to it. Enjoy it.
The Grumpy Gits are proudly partnered with Naidex, Europe's largest disability conference.
I am your glorious host, Adam Pearson, leading you through this cavalcade of disability discussion, ridiculous conversation, friendship, and banter. But as always, I am not alone. He lives in Leicester. Some say he's the bester. I hope no one will ever hold him to ransom. It's Mr. Simon Sansome. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Long time no see. Me and Adam met up in London this week at News UK for a conference, which went really well. We don't often spend a lot of time together because we speak most days, but he lives in London and I live in Leicester. So it was nice to see you for a change in person.
And up next, he's incredibly saucy. He's incredibly Aussie. To call him your friend is a right you must earn. I am, of course, talking about Duncan Casburn. How are you, good sir?
I'm seriously, I want to know if you've swallowed the Little Book of Shakespeare this week or something like that.
Have you ever seen the kids show Nightmare? I'm doing the start of Nightmare. I thought it could become, if it works, we'll keep it going. You'll have a hunch it won't.
I'm very well. Yeah. Plodding on as always, my man.
And finally, this poetry git is getting quite lame. I spent hours writing it. So that's a dying shame. Anyway, let's get on with this Grumpy Gits game. How are you doing, Chris, second name?
Hey, I'm not doing particularly great. It's like anxiety, but instead of feeling fed up, I get angry and impatient over everything. But I did hear something quite interesting on the radio about the clocks going forward. Apparently, it's almost like a mini jet lag, and that millions of people will suffer for at least 4 days to catch up with themselves.
Is that or you've hit the menopause?
Being impatient, being angry. So not particularly great, but I don't know. Give me 4 days and I'll be all right.
You'll get there for the next episode, my man.
Sunday definitely didn't help. I took my boy to Lichfield, which is about a 35-minute drive on a Sunday morning. Sunday morning, what do you always see on A roads?
Tractors.
Cyclists.
Horses. Cyclists, mammals,
just
mammals
cyclists
everywhere.
I hate saying it, and sometimes I don't put it on Twitter, but I want to go on record. I hate cyclists. I really do. They're so smug. I don't want to see your ass in Lycra. Go away, all right?
Look at me, dressed like a Power Ranger, saving the planet. No, red, green, learn the difference. Dress like a grown-up. Then we'll come talk.
I think we should just introduce a new section, which will be the Will Smith section, where we can just bitch slap whoever's annoying us for a week.
The bitch slap section.
We used to have a section like that on our wrestling podcast called Dick of the Week. And we gave it to this wrestler once called Bram. And then we all stopped doing the podcast and forgot all about it. 6 years later, me and one of my co-hosts, Kai, find ourselves at a wrestling show where he's main eventing. And he's going around talking to all the fans, and he comes up, introduces himself. We have a half an hour chat, and he goes, "Anyway, guys, I got to get changed." And then he just turns and goes, "Oh, I'll try not to be a dick tonight." And we were like, "Fuck." he heard that. Oh wow! And because since then we've done about 80 of that segment, so I'm just like, "Oh God, who else has heard it?" Anyway, hey, Sarah. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see, particularly if, like me, you're partially sighted. Okay, Sarah. Let's get on with our regular, recurring initial segment. Mr. Chris Leasmith, do you have any ridiculous questions?
Yes, and as always, I think I'm going to make this regular, where I try and start a fight between the three of you, not me.
I love it. Sorry to interrupt you, Chris.
Right.
Just cut for a second. I'm a bit hot. Is anyone else a bit a bit hot. It's
It
really
is.
hot
We've
here.
had some warm weather, haven't we?
I'm just hoping he's got clothes on underneath that jumper.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna, yeah.
You wearing the same shirt?
Where did you get your song from?
Oh, wait a minute. Just, you know,
is that the Twitter poll by any chance?
right at the top, 6%.
Yeah.
I think I may have been left out there as the joke. I am the punchline.
Well, this is what happens when you put a poll on Twitter, but neglect to tweet two of the members and then comment that, are they doing badly? And still lose. And still lose.
I can't believe that, out of all four of us, I've got the most followers on social media, and I lost.
I think that speaks volumes to the whole poll.
Right, stupid question. What song makes you immediately change the radio station? Let's start with Duncan this week.
Oh God, there's so many. Like
what would make you do it quickest?
Oh, anything by Justin Bieber, just gone instantly. But I think probably for my all-time most hated. One
that you change it with your fist.
Yeah. This is why I love Spotify. My music's on my Spotify. That's what plays in the car. I don't have to worry about dents in the dashboard and stuff like that. There's so many songs. To be honest, I'll go for an entire genre because I am a terrible music snob, but I do believe everybody has a right to listen to what they listen to, what their choices are, what their music love is. Go for it, unless it's country and western, in which case burn in hell. I actually quote it when I go to the hospital or I go to a doctor and they ask me for allergies. My answer is always country and western.
I like that answer. Let's go on to Simon.
I have the time of my life.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, and the reason for it is my radio station is like the hard 90s, hard 80s, and Magic FM, and so it's soft music I like when I'm driving. But every time I get in the car, I can guarantee you that song comes on. It's on the radio every day, all the time when I'm in the car.
You hate it because it's overplayed, or you just...
It's massively overplayed. It'll be interesting. I want a Freedom of Information Act request to see how many times Heart Radio have played Have I Had the Time of My Life in the past 10 years. It will be over 1 million.
Okay. So overplayed.
Anyone
immediately...
watching, you go right ahead and call Heart Radio tomorrow morning. Make sure you request I had the time of my life.
Doesn't matter. They'll play it on repeat anyway, so you don't need to do that. Adam, what song makes you immediately change the radio station?
Rihanna, Umbrella.
Oh, really?
Ella, under my umbrella, Ella. I'm getting angry doing it.
Is it because the lyrics are quite easy? They're quite dumb lyrics.
The dumb lyrics. It doesn't make any sense either. It's like, oh, I love you. Stand under here so we don't get wet. We haven't even established it's raining.
Isn't it about chivalry? Isn't that the point? It's about chivalry.
Well, if I'm going, hey baby, one hand under my umbrella. No, it's August. Go away.
Can I make an honorary contribution to this question? My honorary contribution is Beyonce, Single Ladies, where they're doing the video. And the only reason for it, I used to turn it off all the time because it was the most repetitive song of all time. But since someone put over the top of it Thomas the Tank Engine music on YouTube, it is absolutely amazing. So every time I listen to it with the choo-choo train going in my head.
So let's move on to question 2. What have you got most angry about in the past month?
So I was trying to break my record at speed running Cuphead, which is like a balls hard run and gun boss rush game. And I nearly did it. How much do you think I missed beating my personal best by?
Milliseconds, hundredths of a second.
3 seconds. I was 3 seconds off. And I'm like, that's 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 54 seconds wasted.
It's a weird one, but I understand the waste of time. Duncan, let's go for the same question for you.
Oh, IMAX and sounds and plugs and trying to get Zoom working with it. And yeah, I nearly destroyed my studio this week trying to set the whole stupid thing up. It's been a pain.
Technology will do that.
Car parking in London.
Oh, right, yes.
You need a PhD to understand car parking in London because there are 32 boroughs in London and every single one has different rules and regulations on how you can use your blue badge. Me and Kate were driving back from London on Thursday morning after we met up with Adam at the News UK conference. And because of I've got a Motability car, we went on to the ultra low emissions zone website. And online, it said we had to pay £22. Fine. There was no way you could actually pay for it or where the exclusions are. So we spent half an hour in the car driving out of London on the phone. And when we actually got through, although the website was going to charge us 25 quid, we got told we're exempt because it's a Motability car. But they don't tell you that anywhere.
Oh,
wonderful.
So I've appealed one ticket, I've had to pay another, and I'm taking the other one to the tribunal thing. Because otherwise it's 65 quid a ticket, you know. It's over, it's over £200 in fines for somewhere where I thought you could park because I was down the road in the wrong borough.
Take your greatest talent. So for me, I would say it's causing arguments between the three of you. So take your greatest talent. Simon, maybe it'd be journalism for you. Adam, maybe it'd be acting for you. And Duncan, it would be maybe your PDA dad knowledge. Whatever your greatest talent is, I want you to measure it. And then I want you to pit yourself against the four of us between 1 and 4. How talented do you think you are compared to the other Grumpy Gits? Let's start with Adam.
My name is Adam Pearson, and I am the best in the world at what I do, providing there are no meaningful follow-up questions to that statement. No, I do the acting well. I'm quite funny, hence I'm an all-round entertainment machine, and it is great. And again, putting myself at number 1, don't even need to hear what anyone else has to say. And if you don't believe me, look at The Guardian's top 10 films of the century so far and see who's at number 4.
So who are the other 3? Because that's not even a podium position.
Well, no, but the other 3 are There Will Be Blood and Sorry the Slave and something else. And I love those films, so I'm better than slavery. Like I'm going to have that argument on the internet.
But you say number 4, but like Simon on these shirts is number 4. We thought it was crap.
Yeah, but he was like 4 of 4. I'm 4 of all the films that are out this century.
So you're saying you're the most talented out of the 4 of us? Yes, Adam. Am I hearing that correctly?
You are hearing that 100%.
No, usually I go clockwise, but I'm going to go across to Simon.
Coordination.
That's not the answer I want. I just want a number. Where do you think you are between the 4 of us?
Yeah, I've got better coordination than the other 3 of you. My coordination is off the scale.
In terms of talent, where would you put yourself?
1.
Number 1. Okay.
Do you want me to prove it? I will be back in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Oh
God.
It's going to be a brief.
A few moments later.
So, I was bit of demonstration.
Okay.
It's just crazy, I can do it with anything. And I can spin sticks, I can, juggle and stuff. And hey, that's a book.
I got to say, I'm slightly impressed here.
I'm actually quite impressed by that.
I am very impressed that you can spin stuff because I don't think I can.
I think I can beat that with my eyes. I reckon my eyes are more coordinated than your rest of your body.
Why is that? Oh, that's freaky.
Adrian Edmondson there. I didn't know he could do that.
That's freaky. Well done.
I think we've got a top spot there.
Number 1. Yeah.
Okay, Duncan. What would you say your greatest talent is, and where would you put it in regards to the 4 of us?
I say this with the preface that any good musician understands that they're never a great musician. There's always improvement to be made. But I think my guitaring.
Okay. And where would you measure up between Adam's acting, Simon's ability to spin things, and mind to cause arguments.
Right, I'm going to put it on par with Adam. I actually think we're both equal on that. I think they both bring joy to other people. You could argue that you're getting us all to argue with each other does the same thing, but it actually brings joy. I can get on a stage, I can play the music, and people generally come back saying, that was wonderful, thank you so much. The occasional person says, you suck, I hate you. But, you know, my wife has learnt not to do that.
I don't want to dig any deeper here, but you said, I think I'm on par with Adam.
Yeah, with his, I think the acting side of things.
Yeah.
And that it brings a joy to people and bring it. So
would you put yourself at joint one? Or
joint one. Yeah, I think it's a joint one.
Well, I tell you what, I'm not going to put out a Twitter poll this week.
And that's the end of stupid questions.
Well, there we go. What do you think at home? Who is the most talented of all the Grumpy Gits? Feel free to let us know in the comments. If you want to let Simon know that 3 times 65 isn't over 200, also go ahead and do that. It's 195. Spoilers.
Dyslexic. I'm dyslexic. Can't do math. Can't spell.
Does that mean you're enumerate?
Yeah.
You know what? Not only can you spin, Simon, right now you can swivel. Let's move the hell on. Oh, what's made me angry in the past month? Changing my fucking answer. Now, did anyone see the Oscars, or does anybody know what happened? Bearing in mind we've referenced it at least 3 times, hoping the answer is yes.
When he came on stage, when he slapped him, I thought this is just something to do with the show. Because I was watching it online, it didn't edit out, get your name out of my fucking wife, get your name out of the fucking wife's mouth or whatever it was. Once he swore.
That sounds so
disturbing. That's still not it. That's really not it. Keep my wife's name out of your mouth.
That was it. Yeah. What happened was I realised it was real because Will Smith, who I've liked for years, was swearing live on TV at Chris Rock, shouting at him, and all of a sudden the audience went, "Oh yeah, this is real."
I think violence is never the answer, and I get why he was upset because he's making fun of Jada Pinkett Smith. Who I think 2018 she came out and said she had alopecia.
Yep,
and he's also gone after her before. The last time he hosted the Oscars was when the Oscars So White debate was happening. And Jada Smith was like, "Oh yeah, I'm boycotting the Oscars." And Chris Rock said, "You weren't invited." That's like me boycotting Rihanna's panties. They show Will Smith laughing at the joke. So I reckon he laughed, looked at his wife, who probably wasn't laughing, and then went, "Right, I've got to do something now." But I never thought he'd slap him.
But from my point of view, I mean, Ricky Gervais, when he does the Golden Globes, I think has done a lot worse jokes. And you don't see celebrities coming up to him to punch him in the face. I mean, what he did to Mel Gibson was absolutely horrific. And Mel Gibson took it on the chin. And I think Ricky Gervais said it best as well. Just because you're insulted doesn't make you right. And yes, I don't think, and I agree with Adam here, when you look at it, I don't think Will Smith was insulted by the joke, but then he realised his wife was, and then he took some action. Going on stage in front of millions of people, assaulting someone, and then a few minutes later, you're getting a standing ovation. For me, if you assault someone, you get arrested. So my point of view is, yes, you can defend your wife, but did he do it the right way? Absolutely not.
Firstly, Will Smith shouldn't have slapped Chris Rock, but Chris Rock definitely shouldn't have made that joke. That was punching down. It was ableist. Will Smith laughed at it, but I completely understand him looking across to seeing how upset his wife is and then realizing he's going to get upset for seeing his wife upset. So he went up and he confronted Chris Rock. Shouldn't have slapped him. That was such a silly thing to do and definitely shouldn't have made a huge fool out of himself by shouting up angrily to Chris Rock. Both in the wrong, to be honest. But again, Chris Rock shouldn't have made such a piss poor joke. It wasn't funny. It really wasn't. That's so below, because I like Chris Rock and I've seen his stand-ups. That is so below his level. that it wasn't worse. It was almost rivaling Adam's joke about Coldplay in the car.
That joke was amazing. And I had a joke about this. But you know what, Chris? You don't deserve it now.
Oh, come on, mate. I want to hear it now.
Straight after the Oscar ceremony, Chris Rock was treated by doctors. And after a medical examination, upon his face, they found fresh prints.
Oh, God. That is actually clever, at least. The whole thing with the Coldplay in the car, there was no intelligence to that. It was just stupid.
I just thought you were going to say it's been a rock and a hard place.
Oh, God. Oh. Right, Duncan, what have you given your point of view on this yet? What do you think?
And I'm actually torn with this one because I sympathise. I agree. Will Smith did the wrong thing. Violence is never a solution. But by the same token, I put myself in his shoes, and if that was my wife in that position, or any of my friends, if I was in a pub with you guys and someone came up and made a comment about Simon being in a wheelchair, there's a part of me that would get up and just punch the bloke. And whether I know that's not the right thing to do, I know it's not the right response, but I understand that depth of emotion that comes out when you see someone you love hurting because of something that somebody else has said with no, like you say, punching down as far as this was concerned. I understand that emotion. And maybe he did sort of chuckle thinking, I've got to respond the right way to this, then look over and see just how hurt his wife was. And he's like, no, right, that's it. And he overreacted, and I see that. I kind of get that. I get that well of emotion that comes from seeing someone you love being hurt, and in a way,
almost uncontrollable as well.
It is when it wells up at that moment. Mr. Spot goes for a walk. Your logic's gone, and your emotion and your fight, flight, or freeze, and basically he had emotion and fight working together, and logic had left the building. Spock had gone.
What did your home think of the Oscars debacle? Were there really any winners? Was anyone really in the right? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the Fresh Prince joke? It's a 10. Let us know down in the comments below, and we will keep this show rolling. We have an interview coming up, and it's with a musician. So I'm going to throw over to the musician of the Grumpy Gits to tell you more about it. Duncan, who are we interviewing?
We are interviewing Greg from The Fallen State. As Adam says, we have got from The Fallen State. Now, if you don't know who The Fallen State are, they're a fantastic band out of North Devon. They have toured with Tremonti, Blackstone Cherry, Hailstorm, Red. They are currently about to embark on a tour with Stone Broken. And we have the bass player, Greg Butler. And he's joining us to talk a bit about the new album, which was released on Friday. How's it going, Greg?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. It's fine. If you don't know, we've interviewed back when we did the Grumpy Dads. Chris and I got to interview Dan from the Fallen State and basically the rest of the band, but we haven't managed to speak to Greg at this point. And Greg is really, everyone still thinks the bass player, and you get the bass player jokes, and I'm sure you've heard every single one of them.
You did ask me to do this last.
Well, my favourite was always, what do you do when the drummer locks the keys in the car? Spend the next 2 hours trying to get the bass player out.
Yeah. Right, I'm gone.
But actually, Greg does so much more. Greg, obviously you play bass, and you play bass amazingly well, but you do so much more with the band. What's your role outside of just the music?
This is the thing with being in a smaller band, so to speak, is most of the jobs have to be done by someone, or you obviously pay someone to do them, but you can't really afford to do it at our level. So yeah, you learn how to take those things upon yourselves and do them yourselves. So it can be anything from design merch, selling, everything, and then eventually you get to play the bass.
And I mean, the stuff you put out, We'll put some clips in, but the videos that the band released to go with the music are astonishingly good quality when you consider that they are currently unsigned and they're currently, you know, pushing to get up there. I mean, you cracked the top 40 on iTunes. I saw that on the rock charts.
Yeah. On Friday we did. Yeah, we've managed to do it a few times, which is really cool. But
yeah,
it's, especially considering iTunes isn't really a too big these days. It's more about Spotify and stuff like that. But yeah, it's still nice that people go out and still buy it digitally as well. So especially when they don't even have to. So it's really cool to see, especially when you get it high. We've not quite got to number one yet. We've had a number two with Nova, but we're hoping, we're singing when you're like, oh come on, when you can do it. But yeah. Having
heard the album, and it's been on repeat in my house since it came out. What inspired the change of tone? Like, not change of tone, but there is a definite sort of progression between the last album to this one. There's a lot more layering and a lot more texture to it, and it's also probably darker and heavier, I think, than what's come before. Was there an inspiration behind that? Was it a natural progression, or was it something that was considered?
Definitely a natural progression. Obviously, if people don't know, obviously our old singer Ben did actually leave the band in 2019. And I think we still probably would have gone down this route anyway. We were all just digging sort of heavier music at the time. And, you get influenced very much by what you hear and what you like. And we just, one thing about the Fallen State is we always try and change it up, mix it up, go for something new, try something we haven't done before, push ourselves as much as we possibly can. And I think it's just a product of that, really. When you introduce someone like Adam to the band, you add a new dynamic. And it just gave us a new sort of, palette of things we can actually go ahead and do. So did we intend to make a heavy album? Probably not. But did we, when we're all sort of jamming ideas and putting ideas across, which obviously, did digitally this time over the internet, I think we're mostly digging the heavier stuff. So I think that's what ended up on it. Nothing to say that next time we might not write an acoustic album, for example. No, it just, that's the thing with the Fallen State. We just like to, we just do what we feel at that time. And if it comes out heavier or not,
songs like Gallows, I can hear a lot of Gahira in there and stuff like that. Was that an influence in there, or?
Gahira, I don't know really, to be honest. I mean, I certainly like the new album. Were we influenced by that? Possibly, but it just comes from all sorts of angles.
But there's a natural osmosis, isn't there, with music? When you're listening to something, when it becomes, it almost bleeds through. There's always an influence.
When if you like hanging around with someone you might not hang around with that much, and they start saying a word, and eventually you find it just sneaks into your vocabulary.
Yeah,
I think that is definitely something with music. So you listen to it, and you'll naturally go, "Oh, that's cool," and you might not have deliberately gone for that, but because you've heard it so much and you've been influenced by it, that's what you're kind of into at the time. You might actually accidentally go along that route and end up doing something similar.
And how has the response thus far to the new album been from the fan base?
Considering on Thursday night, I was thinking, God, I hope people listen to it. Because when you've literally been away for, I mean, we have been away for 2 years, you start wondering if anyone even remembers who you are. And thankfully, loads of people listen to it, and the response has been better than I could imagine. So I'm really grateful for that. It's great that people have checked us out, still sticking with us. Yeah, it means a lot. And definitely a big relief as well that people actually like it. They're not like, God, this is awkward, this is a bit rubbish. These guys should have stopped 2 years ago.
They should have all left the band, ideally. And there is, as I said, like a natural progression across your body of work, but it feels really organic and really natural and unforced. And as a muser, nothing winds me up more than when bands try and force a change through. And it happens a lot. But one of the really, really guilty parties is Shinedown. They mix up too much, in my opinion. It wouldn't surprise me if they came back with a gospel album. The next one.
That wouldn't surprise me either. The thing
is, I really like Shinedown
quite well.
I like them as well. And if you're watching, don't do that. That's a horrible idea.
It's so individual. There's no wrong music to listen to, but as I've already stated on this episode, except for country and western, there's no wrong music.
Do you know what? I think this is a difficult thing for being in a band, Adam. You know, sometimes you want to mix it up. You want to do something a bit different. Sometimes it's really difficult to find that kind of fine line between, does it still sound like the band that we're in? Because, you know, you have fans, they want to hear certain things. But you also want, you know, you also might be into something else. So it's difficult to always find, like I said, that fine line between a bit of both. You know, am I doing what's true to me at the time? And also, are we doing what's true to the history of the band that people like already? Because, you know, I think every band in the world ever who's changed their sound even slightly is always worried that they're going to wake up the next day and literally everyone's just gone, no, I don't like you anymore. And it certainly has happened. It certainly has happened.
I totally agree with that. And I think that's the difficult thing. I remember listening to Eddie Van Halen talk about music and the way he writes. And it's almost like you have to write for yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to be authentic. And if between the 5 guys in the band, or 4 guys for his band, but, you know, between you 5 guys, the chances are if you all like it, somebody else is going to enjoy it as well.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Hopefully, anyway, unless we would start liking country and western, obviously.
Yeah.
There was also another one. I mean, like when we did, obviously, you know, we talked about Nova when we did Nova a few years ago, and you know, it did phenomenally well. It was better than we could ever imagine. And there was a kind of like, can you write more Novas? And it's like, well, I don't know. You know, do we want to write another Nova? Like, do you do the same thing again? I think the best way to do it, and I think the rest of the guys in my band will certainly agree with this, is just to write what you want to write at that time.
Yeah.
And just hope it's good. Because if it's not, then, like I said, you know, it could be catastrophic. But yeah, if you're being true to yourself, I think that's what music's about. That's what art's about. The hardest thing is needing people to like it to actually be successful. Because really, fundamentally, I think being successful probably is just doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, like I said, finding a fine line between the both is difficult.
I mean, from the start, I mean, it's been a hard trawl anyway, because you guys formed at a time where rock music was at an all-time low, no pun intended, for, you know, but no one was really listening to rock anymore, and it was almost, everyone was declaring, you know, rock is dead and stuff. You've ridden that through and you built this up during that time, and if you weren't being true to yourselves, you'd have been, you know, something very different.
I think the difficult thing, and certainly something we've felt, and especially back in sort of, what did we start, 2013, it's so difficult to get yourself out there. You know, it's so hard to do it. There is many, I mean, we'd have to have a whole evening of talking to explain what I mean, but there's gatekeepers in the industry. There's and that can go from anyone from being bigger bands to just industry people, that it's really difficult to find a way around to get past, to even just put yourself out there, you know. And you know, there's a lot of people saying rock is dead, but I think that, you know, people are not really looking.
No, I agree.
Sorry, I think they're looking, but they haven't got a chance to see it, and that's the problem, because there are so many bands, and unfortunately so many bands that have probably never made it and broken up because they couldn't get a break.
Yeah.
Haven't actually had a chance to even get past that first little milestone that they have to get past to even get themselves out there for enough people to hear it. Because you could write best music, you could be the best band on the planet, it doesn't mean you're going to get to the top.
You faced a lot getting this album out. It seems to have been a rocky road. I want to say straight out, I mean, Gallows is a song from, you know, as one of the heavier tracks, but the meaning behind that really packs a punch. Can you explain a bit about that?
So we had the music down, and it wasn't until we actually got Adam into the band that we actually sat down to talk about maybe to put some melody to it. There was elements to it we were like, this is pretty dark. And Dan sort of said, look, you know, I've got kind of a theme that I've sort of been exploring, and especially when I was writing parts of this song, you know, I thought it might be something we could follow. Unfortunately, Dan had cancer, which you possibly know if you've seen your podcast before. I think you've spoken.
We interviewed Dan, and I mean, he was very open about what he went through. But for anyone who's listening that hasn't seen that, we'll put the links up in the description, and there'll be a card up here. But Dan, at a very young age, was diagnosed with lung cancer. As a person who's never smoked in his life, he's probably the fittest guy you've ever known in your life. Yeah. And he got hit with this.
It kind of hit him so hard, and it was a really dark time, not just for him, but for his family and for his friends as well. And, you know, us guys in the band, I mean,
yeah,
I've never really been so worried about someone in my life. He just had this idea of when he was, when he got his diagnosis, there was obviously the thing that comes with cancer is am I going to survive? He started thinking about all these things that would go along with if he did actually succumb to it, and that's effectively what the theme is. And he felt it was almost like he'd been sentenced to death. He had this idea of literally the messed up situation you would be in if that was to happen to you, how you would feel. And this is he wanted to put that into some sort of lyrical content. Quite a few of the other songs on the album actually have that kind of thing as well, and it all fits into sort of like a lyrical theme. So those lyrics are actually written, and the melody was written, and then we went back and we changed certain parts to sort of suit that. And that's one thing that we try and do on our tracks, is to try and fit it with the lyrics. It's not just here's some music, here's some lyrics. It all should hopefully work musically and
informs the other.
It's probably my favorite song on the album. I like it when things can feel gritty, feel dark, but also you can almost tap into some meaning behind them. And I think like with any art form, you bring your darkness to the table. And I think that kind of really small interchange between pain and beauty is where real magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said that better myself, to be honest. Yeah, this is exactly what we were going for when we did that. It's to put it across in a musical form and try and provoke that emotion, so to speak, in anyone, not just ourselves, and anyone who's listening to it.
I mean, on the other side of that coin, you talked about the fact people say, "Oh, when's the next Nova?" And it's like, no. But then you got the song Mirror. Now, Mirror's not anything like Nova to me. It's a very different song, but it's astonishing, and it's a beautiful song at the same time. Like the melody to it, but just it takes you on a journey. Yeah. It's one of those songs that starts somewhere and you feel like you're being taken on a journey, not just lyrically, which is definitely there. What I love is that the music carries that journey as well.
Yeah, again, it's a song that was predominantly an idea from John, an idea if they want to write a song that kind of portrays this kind of theme. Obviously, Adam did a great job on those lyrics as well with the rest of the band, and also as our producer Dave. But yeah, the idea was to build that theme across the whole track, to go from one point and end in another point, and that's based around the theme. Now, I don't like to give away too much about what we were thinking when we wrote the song, because it is quite. I always think, even as myself, like when I hear a song, sometimes I want to take a lyrical meaning and have it relate to me, from what I can hear from it. And that's quite the beauty in music sometimes, where you can actually take something that didn't actually mean what you thought it means to you.
I heard Tremonti talking about this, Mark Tremonti, was If Not For You. And he was saying that he was getting all these blokes saying, "Oh, that's just how I feel about my wife. It's wonderful. You did such a good song." And he was sort of like, actually, it was written as a sort of stalker's perspective, and it's really not the nice song you think it is.
Yeah, it's like one of the most played wedding, like first dance songs at weddings of all time is Sting, Every Breath You Take.
Yeah.
And like that's a song about stalk. That's a psychopath song. It's not a love song. It's a psychopath song. Every breath you take, I'll be watching you.
Yeah. What I'm getting at more, I think, is that it works as a song, as the lyrics take you on a journey, but the music carries it. I once heard someone say, music takes words to a place that words can't reach on their own.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
And I think Mirror is a great example of that.
I agree. Lyrically, Mirror is very, very clever. And I get very frustrated when you hear people singing or quoting lyrics in like a meaningless kind of way.
Yeah.
When people go and do karaoke and they'll break out something like Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, for the sake of breaking out Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You. And I'm like, do you have any idea what you're singing? Any idea? You're just saying words in a tone that you think is okay, that might not be, by the way, throwing that out there. And not really focusing. You're singing with your mouth and not with your head or your heart.
Yeah.
And I get really annoyed when I see people doing that. And I think Mirror is a direct antithesis of that, where there are words in an order that, as Duncan said, get to where they couldn't get to on their own from a pure lexicon point of view. But when you tap into the rest of what's going on behind it, it just takes it to this really like bizarre emotional level.
Mm.
And I think if you really understand musicality and how it can also emote beyond the mere technicality of musicianship, it's something that can really resonate with the human soul.
Mate, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. For anyone who wants to check out the album, where can they get hold of it, or where can they stream it?
We've managed to get it streaming everywhere. You literally can find it anywhere, and as I found out the other day, you can even find it on random pirate download sites on the internet. So I don't know if that means you've made it or not. I'd like to see the numbers. Maybe that's where all our sales are going. So you can stream it on the internet. Easy ones: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, you name it, you can get it. If you want the CD though, you want a nice shiny signed copy of CDs, you can only get it in one place, which is on our Big Cartel shop. And you can get one where we've completely ruined this beautiful artwork with a Sharpie pen, which obviously we all went, oh, should we be doing this? But yeah, you can get it if you head to our website. You can get one of those, and that's the only place you can get it at the moment. Or come to a show, which is even better. You get to experience the full estate show.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you hit the road in a few weeks for this Stone Broken tour. That's right, isn't it? That's
right. It's 3 weeks tomorrow. We can't wait to get out on what is probably known as the most postponed tour in history. Postponed tours.
Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure speaking to you, man.
Yeah,
Go and check out the album, guys. It is fantastic. And if you're a lover of music, especially if you're a fan of rock music, there's not a dead track on there. They are all epic. So please do go check it out. In the meantime, we'll head back over to past us in the studio.
Moving on, and we're going to get serious, and we make no apologies for that. And whilst the whole purpose of this podcast has always been four mates having a laugh, sometimes the world does things that you just can't laugh at, and you have to talk about, thrash out, and acknowledge. And so we're going to talk to a Ukrainian lady now called Nataliya Vanstone. As I say, she's a Ukrainian lady currently living in the United Kingdom. And she's going through the long-winded process that you'll hear more about in the interview to try and get her mother, who's in the Ukraine, over here to safety. Her mother's living in one of the areas that's been heavily targeted by the Russian regime and this ridiculous illegal war. So, I use this term very loosely. I hope you enjoy this really important interview.
Thanks so much, Adam. And yeah, as Adam said, we have got what's going to be quite a moving interview, I think. We have got Nataliya Vanstone, who is a Ukrainian national who has been living in the UK, who has been in the very challenging position of having to try and bring her mother back from Ukraine so that she's able to keep her safe. So before we go on, I'm going to welcome Nataliya. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, Duncan. Yes, thank you very much for inviting me today. I'm happy to share my story, what has happened. It has been a very difficult month. Just over a month since it all happened. Yeah, so go ahead. Any questions? I'm happy to tell my story.
Well, I guess the first and most obvious one is, when this all unfolded, what was it like for you hearing about what's happening and realizing that Russia was invading? How did that come across? What happened?
Strangely enough, prior to that fateful day on the 24th, I didn't have any anticipation of anything wrong. I was quite calm about it. My husband came home on a Wednesday, the 23rd, and he said to me, I've got a really bad feeling. How about we ask your mum to come and visit, stay maybe for 6 months with us, see how things happen, because it's kind of, I feel a bit strange feeling. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. But if you insist, I'm happy for mum to come and visit us, because we haven't seen her for 3 years now. I opened up the paperwork, rang mum, said to her, how do you feel about coming over? And she's like, yeah, okay. So I started filling out the application, left it, went to bed about 1 o'clock. And then at night, that was 5 o'clock here in the UK, my phone started pinging. And I thought, that's odd. Nobody really contacts me, during the week. So I looked at the message, and it was a message from my mom, and it read, the war has started. And I woke up, I went downstairs, I was trying to read the message, like looking, is it really? Am I still asleep? And then she rang me and she said, I'm just ringing to say goodbye, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to make through this, or if the electricity is going to be, or if we lose the connection. And I just broke down in tears, because then I realized how serious it was. Then I started getting messages with the pictures of explosions from my family members. It was completely surreal, like, I don't know, bad dream. And the first initial reaction was to, right, we've got to get mum out. And in 9 o'clock in the morning, that day, the 24th, I rang the Home Office, the helpline. And I said, what can we do? The war has started. My mom is there. She's a Ukrainian national, but I'm a UK national. But this is my mom. We've got to help her. And the Home Office said, she needs to go to Kiev and apply for visa. And I'm like, how? There's martial law. You can't use the public transport. She lives in another town, about 2 hours drive from Kiev. But they said, okay, just we'll sorting it out. And then my sister, who lives in Austria, so she's also Ukrainian national, she was in the same position. She said she couldn't get through to the embassies. Everything was like they didn't answer the phones. So we understood that it was definitely the panic, because nobody expected this would happen. We kind of made a decision with my sister that she will drive with her husband to the border in Poland and get my mom over to cross. And where she lives, she's got her niece and their little daughter, the 6-year-old. So they were together there in that situation. They were scared that the roads were closed, the shooting could happen. They had made a plan to drive through the woods or something like that, so that at least it's not on the main road. So yeah, that it was just a complete mess. They set off on a Friday morning at 8 o'clock on Friday morning, the 25th, and they didn't get through until the 3 o'clock in the morning on the 27th. Wow. So they spend like nearly 2 days, so 10 or 15 hours traveling in the car, and then trying to cross the border on foot. So they walked for a few hours, then they stood there the whole day out in the open. So with no facilities, there was no toilets, there was no water, food. There was maybe like volunteers dropped them off a bottle of water somewhere, but they couldn't leave the queue because people lose the queue and couldn't get through. Mum said that there was a lady who died next to them in the queue, so dropped dead. There was the children that had a bit of an accident, fell down, knocked their head, had to be taken in the ambulance, so they didn't make it. And they were there with my cousin and her little daughter, who is 6 years old. She stood there all this time. in the cold. I was just pleased that at least it wasn't snowing and it wasn't raining. It was actually a sunny day. So that kind of, somebody was looking over them. Eventually they squeezed through, managed to get past the security, and their paperwork was checked. And on the Ukrainian border, they didn't really do any computer checks. They were just putting stamps and just going, letting people through. But sheer amount of humans and obviously the vehicles that were going with the supplies. So they had a lot on their hands. I was here in the UK. I was completely panicking. I didn't know what to do because they stood there for hours and hours. I found some phone numbers for the Polish border. The Polish border control explained that on their side, they were working really fast. The delays were on the Ukrainian side. And eventually when they made it there, they got through, were helped by the border control people, by volunteers. They were really good. And then my sister took over, and they obviously, for my sister, it was also challenging because they drove for 10 hours from Austria, and then they stood there for 2 days waiting for them.
Is it right that your mum was basically in charge of, was it your niece and a 6-year-old? Your mum was in charge from getting them where she was to the Polish border, is that right?
They were driven in the car by my cousin's partner.
Right.
He drove them to the border, sort of as far as he could towards the border, let them out. So they walked through the forest by foot, and he had to turn back and go because he couldn't leave. He's staying in the territorial defense. So I guess I was in tears because to me it felt really emotional knowing that the dad will have to say goodbye to his little daughter and his partner and leave them there walking through the forest, not knowing what would happen to them.
You see it in films. You don't get the sense of it in real life like that.
That's what I mean. That's why I was thinking it's just some kind of weird dream I'm having, or something. And they made it on the 27th. That was a Sunday. And my sister and her husband drove them to Austria.
What do you do then? You went to go and collect her, or?
Yeah, so this Saturday, Mom arrived to Stansted Airport, and I went and I got her. And here she is.
Hey!
Here she is. Here's the mom.
Wow.
It's amazing.
That is incredible.
Yeah, so she was...
Welcome.
well and alive. So Mom's English isn't perfect. If you would like to ask any questions, go ahead. I'll do a bit of a translation. So Mom, Tetyana, her name is.
How did the war begin for her? When did she really believe that it was happening?
So at 5:05 in the morning, that's on the 24th, in Zhytomyr, that's the city where she lived, were 2 explosions, huge explosions. So people ran outside. She was asleep, and didn't hear the explosions, but she got the messages on her phone from her niece who lives next door, sending the messages saying, did you hear the explosions? Because they took a picture. They ran outside and took a picture of the fire of explosion in the... Yeah, that was on the other side of the town, but it was visible in the sky at night.
Wow.
So they took a picture and sent it to Mom. And then, of course, after that... Yeah, so it's a quite large town where she is. It's about 130 kilometers from Kiev. The explosions have happened from about 4 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the morning all over Ukraine, but in different locations. So in Kiev, in every regional center had at least 2-3 explosions at the same time.
What do you go through at a moment like that? Like, I can only put myself in a very remote understanding. What goes through your mind as you realize what's happening?
Emotionally, it was first is disbelief, so that it cannot be happening because they haven't actually seen the rockets flying. So when maybe you see it flying, you know that, but the explosions, they were like, maybe it's not, maybe it's not what it's supposed to be. Maybe it's something else. And second thought was obviously to say goodbye to the loved ones, just in case they won't get another chance.
Was there any sense of this coming prior to that? Like, we had news here, obviously, letting people know that there was concern about the Russians amassing troops along the borders and stuff like that. Was there a knowledge within inside Ukraine that this was potentially coming, or was it just hidden from them?
They were 99% sure that Russia would never do that. So they were fully reassured that it's not gonna happen. It was absolutely not in the slightest any thought that would happen. So after the explosions happened and they started, just the school sent the messages saying to the kids, don't come to school. But everybody else was still unaware, and some people even went to work. Once it happened, everybody ran to get the fuel, because I guess people straight away knew that fuel and bread disappeared from the shops. So there was queues to get the fuel, but everybody else, all the general population, was in a complete rabbits in the headlights, not knowing what to do, not understanding how to behave. So there was no preparedness whatsoever.
Russia's come out with a whole host of reasons on why this has happened. Silly things like there's an influx of neo-Nazis, that it's to do with oil, or it's NATO's expansion. What was Ukraine like as a country to live in?
This was not really the case. Whatever Russia is saying, this is not the truth.
There was no good reason or any reason whatsoever for Russia to invade or to change Ukraine from what it was.
No, there was never any reasons to. In Russia, there's over 100 different nationalities that live in Russia, and largely the population. She was living in Russia for 14 years. So and being a teacher, and she lived 5 years in Moscow. So from her own experience, she knows that people who live in Russia often envy others. So there is a sense of envy. People in Russia, because of their diversity, they actually feel a bit oppressed in a way. They only know their culture is being oppressed, so they have to comply.
Once you managed to speak to your mum and you put in place, what was then? What was the journey like?
So mom is saying that she has, so this lived experience has been quite traumatic for her. She wakes up every morning at 5 a.m. and she's still crying. So it's been over a month. So today was the first morning when she woke up at 6 rather than 5 and in tears. She said that she cannot imagine what it's like for people who are still in Ukraine and still under the bombs. She's obviously very fortunate having escaped earlier on, like the second day, and hasn't had to put up with running into the bomb shelters and the rest. But still, it's very traumatic for her because of, being taken out and having to run away and thinking about all the people who are behind. It's very difficult, more emotionally, and to see others in that same situation. So she's saying about the women and the children who were, when they were crossing the...
Is that sense of survivor's guilt almost? It's like, why am I... So
yeah, survival guilt as well. And also, I guess, the empathy that you share with the people in the same situation, because it's largely women and children, and they saw these women with younger kids, because all the men from 18 to 60 had to stay behind, so there is no real help for anyone. So it's just the females with the kids trying to and being female herself, she knows what it's like to...
Sorry, did you say that it was the females and kids who were trying to get out?
Yes, it's only the females by themselves.
So when we're hearing that civilians are getting bombed who are trying to get out of Ukraine, those are women and children?
Yes. Yeah, these are because men were able to help out to the point, perhaps like my cousin's partner. So she drove and then went. So her son as well, he's 25, he stayed behind. All our family, the male side of the family, all there. All the men are there, and they do all sorts of tasks. So
there's that fear as well that obviously loved ones are left behind because they've had to remain as husbands, partners, sons.
Yeah, only women were managed to get out. Mom says she can't forget seeing this woman in the car. She's got like a baby in the front, you know, the kangaroo one. Yeah, the sling. Yeah. And then there's a baby next to her sitting. There's a baby at the back, on her back, and there's other kids. People, because of the lack of facility, well, there's no facilities really in the woods. So people were coming out of the cars or just walking and just perching down to have a toilet, and nobody was even like looking or paying attention, because everybody understands
there's a respect there.
Yeah, there is a need, you do it. So there was, I guess everybody was just so stressed out that there was no time to look or joke or whatever.
What was the emotions like, again, for the both of you, when you were reunited?
Какие эмоции были? Just the tears of joy, really. Mom said she was really touched. She was really touched by the people's kindness and empathy as she was traveling from Austria to the UK. And when people saw that she had her Ukrainian passport, everybody was looking at her with a lot of empathy and support and just kindness, and she was touched by that. So the 18 hours as they were standing on the border where the kids were screaming constantly, 2,000 people were stood on the very small part of ground. There's largely women with these young kids, and the kids were just screaming, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. No water, no toilet, nothing for 18 hours. And when they eventually crossed over border and got to the Polish side and were welcomed with such openness, with such humanity and humility and empathy, and were given cup of tea and attention and helped with the luggage and, you know, shown directions, they felt like they were in paradise.
To draw this to a conclusion, you guys were reunited. What was the joy of that moment like? Like you sort of already said, but I mean, how did that really translate for you as well, Nataliya? We sort of heard mother's side, but what was it like for you?
Well, for me, I have to admit that when I had, because that was quite challenging getting to London and making sure that I'll be on time and racing. I was, I guess, all of this external, like life, yeah.
Yes.
The life of here in the UK and all these things that we go through, because the war is not here. We function in a different way. So I was really like I was on a mission, getting mum. And then, of course, when I saw her, I thought, yes, I felt relief, that total, like, yeah, my mission is complete. She's here. She's safe. I can now relax, because I was just on, the adrenaline rush.
Running on fumes. Yeah.
But when I saw her, there was like a relief. But of course, because here in the UK, she doesn't speak English, and I was still in that kind of, I gotta get her safely back, and now we have to, I need to get her some food. I need to make sure how we're gonna travel back. So I was still in a sort of get going
mission mode. Yeah.
So power. But I have to say, I would rather be running on this adrenaline and being an action woman, rather than being completely paralyzed and powerless.
I think the strength you both shown through this and the story.
Yeah,
astonishing. I there's no other way to put it.
Yeah, crying in despair, it's really difficult, but I would rather do things, and I can understand why people are still in this sort of want to help, want to do something, because that empowers you.
Well, on that was actually going to be my last question. Was people, I think, feel helpless to do anything. You hear about what's going on, and there's so many ways which we're told we can help. We but it can be very difficult trying to work out what we can do as, just human beings to support Ukraine in this and support the people like your mother and people who are stuck there. What would you guys say, having lived it?
So from mom perspective, having experienced that, she saying that there's definitely helping people to get away. The women and children must be helped out to get away and just be given some food, shelter, and some clothes, because they need to have sleep. You can't sleep there. So having a safety and knowing that your kids are okay, that's important. For men, obviously, she thinks that the men would do a better job in the country if they don't need to worry about civilians, because the civilians are actually putting more strain on the military, because you got to be a bit more careful. So if that wasn't the case, they probably would do things faster. But the problem is, it's been a month and there's already evidence that lots of people are going back to Ukraine. The ones who managed to escape at the beginning, purely out of the lack of resources. So there's not enough financial support to maintain these people here, abroad or in safety. It's just not enough, and people are going back because they're running out of their money. From personal experience, mom's been in Austria, but she has been purely on the funds that she already had or what we have been providing to her. And I would say that our case is quite luxurious in a way, because first of all, she was able to escape very early on. She had safety and shelter and support of my sister in Austria, and now she has my support here because we've got home here and my husband is working and we don't need to we're not struggling, so to say. But this is not everybody's situation.
What we will do is we'll put in the description a bunch of links to different charities and support mechanisms there. We'll do a bit of research first, so we put up their stuff that we know
Yeah.
those supplies and those financial aids to the Ukraine people. Guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. It was moving is an understatement, quite frankly. It was
eye-opening.
Yeah.
Thank
horrifying
you.
and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm just, the cherry on the cake, to be honest, is purely that seeing you guys together, and we'll put it up, but Nataliya sent me a photo of her and her mum when they got together and they met. And it was, the joy in the photo is everything that I think we need to see at the moment. And that piece.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for obviously, getting in touch. And Mom is very pleased to meet you both.
Likewise, you've got no idea how much joy there is seeing you here safe and sound. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for your time and for making this project, and hopefully that will be interesting for your listeners and people will understand this problem a little bit more.
For those who are watching, what we're going to do is, obviously on the Grumpy Gits, this will be fairly condensed because time restraints.
Yeah.
This will be over on my channel, PDA Dad UK. Again, the link will be in the description and you can pop up on the card up there. You can see the whole interview, and it is 100% watch the whole thing because it's an astonishing story and a beautiful one at the same time. So thanks so much for joining us, guys. We're going to head back.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thank you, as I say.
Bye.
We're going to head back to the podcast now. So hand over back to Adam.
And that brings us to the end of another wonderful episode of the Grumpy Gits. It's been a bit heavier than normal, but sometimes life gets heavy and we act accordingly. On behalf of myself, Adam Pearson, alongside Simon Sansome, Duncan Casburn, and Chris Leasmith, we'll be back with another episode that will have less t-shirts and less poetry, I promise. Take care. See you on the next one.